Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Again, today is July 14th, 2024, and we're going to get into our program here today. On the main topic is going to be speaking to those 50 years and younger. Some may be 51, 52. We never worry about that. But those Muslims who are 50 years and younger, and what are they doing to ensure the continuity of Al Islam in America? So that's going to be our focus today. Uh, I want to make a few comments, brief comments, about the situation yesterday involving former President Donald Trump and the assassination attempt. And regardless of one's politics, uh, we have to stand for what is right and stand against what is wrong. And though, and I can say it personally, I don't like the man's politics, but that shooting was wrong, and we cannot soft pedal on that. We have to stand up. If righteous people, Muslims, Christians, or Jews, stand for what is right, and what happened to him was not correct. It's not good for anything. It's not good for a nation. It's not good for mankind. There's enough murders going on in our neighborhoods. I know I hear gunshots regularly in my neighborhood, and that's not good. We just want to make that plain, regardless of your stance on his political thinking. And we should not support that, make light of that, or mock that just situation, uh, because it's not good. It's not healthy. Uh, no, I'm not going to vote for him. Those are my few words on that topic right there. So I am also on Facebook Live. And so for those who want to go to my Facebook page, this program will be archived twice now. Archived on the blog station IWDM, and also archived on YouTube under my name, Michael Mikael Sahir. So our format on words make people is to go to the best words for making people. And the best words for making people is none other than El Quran, the book revealed to Prophet Muhammad, the prayers and peace be upon him. I know some may argue the Bible or the Torah and other, and we respect those books too. But the ultimate book, the superlative book for containing words that make people, are the words of the Quran. So that's our format. Today we're going to read from chapter 1, I'm sorry, uh, verse 4, and Nisa, the women, chapter 1. And we know as Muslims, we always seek God's protection before reading the Quran. That's how important these words are. There are two phrases that we always say, unless we're reading chapter 9, we don't say the second phrase. But the first phrase we say before reading this sacred text is, in the Arabic, is A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Okay, that's in the Arabic, which means that I seek refuge, some say protection, with God, with Allah, billahi, with God, mene shaitanir rajim, away from Satan, the rejected, accursed enemy. Then the second phrase we say, but unless you're reading chapter 9, you do not say the second phrase. But for the other 113 chapters of the Quran, you say the second phrase, which is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, which is with the name Allah, with the name God, the merciful benefactor, merciful redeemer. And now we can read. And it says here it says, Ya ayyuhan nasu ittaku rabbakum alladhina khalaqakum min nafsin wahidah. It says, O mankind, and that's a Muslim, let's be mindful. It didn't say believers, Muslim. It says, Nas, and all mankind, yeah, how you, and Nasu, all mankind. It says, reverence, itakurabukum. It says, reverence your guardian Lord, who created Eladhi Kalakatkum, who created you min nafsin wahidan, who created you from a single soul. And it says, what Kalaka min has Zojaha, and he created its mate, both from a single soul. It's, it goes on and says, وَبَثَ مِنْهُمَّ رِجَالًا كَثِيرًا وَنِسَاءً. Then Allah says that He created, He made many men and women. He made many men and women. And then it says, I lost my place. Cathedral, yes. Wanisa. It says, "What itaku Allah and reverence God, alladhi tasaluna bihi, reverence God for whom you demand your mutual rights." And then it says, "Wa arham," and the wombs, the womb, the womb. And they have in parentheses in the use of Ali, they have that bore you, they have that in parentheses. So it's not really saying the wombs that bore you. Most times to Muslims in translations, if the words are in parentheses, the concept may be there, but the actual words are not there. So the part that bore you is it's there, but it's not really there in the Arabic. But they do say the wombs. And Imam Muhammad, Imam W.D. Muhammad, Wallace Muhammad, he explained that this wombs is really saying the place that connects us or binds us together as a family. Because it is the womb of the mother that binds us, that unites us as a family. But Allah says to reverence the wombs that bore you. And so here, they got wombs plural. So it's not just speaking about your mother's personal, individual womb. It's speaking about any kind of womb or society or community that bore you. Any kind of gathering, a place where you can be brought together as people, as a community, as a nation, as a society. And this word for wombs is arham, which is from the same root word as Rahman. The root word is Rahima, right? And from Rahima we get Rahman, we get Rahim, we also get Arham. And here that is referring to the womb, the place that develops you, the place where you go into like a cocoon or to a womb, how you want to say it, you will be moved away from the influences of society until Allah brings you to that stage to where you're ready to go out into the world. Those are the wombs that bore you. Our schools are a womb. You go to a high school, college, that's why it's called a mother. Schools are called mothers. You say my alma mater. But the word mater is saying mother, my mother. So the classroom, that is a womb. Yeah, someone says, Brother come on, he said, I thought it also meant any environment that shapes your mind. Yes, we said the same. Thank you, Brother Numan. Yeah, you're right. Uh, and a classroom shapes your mind. The mother in the house shapes your mind. The norms, the mores, MOES, the manners, the customs of your society, the cultural influences that those are environments that shape your mind. The mosque, the church, or whatever it may be, those also are environments that shape your mind. So this right here says to reverence the wounds that bore you. And it is saying, Inna Allahu kana alaykum rakiban, because Allah is watching you. Allah is watching you. So alhamdulillah, uh, that's the reading for today. And I'm telling you why I chose this verse, because our topic today is we're going to speak to those 50 years and younger, 50-ish and younger, and what are they going to do to help to sustain the continuity of Islam in America? Because the wounds that bore us, no one chooses the womb that bore them. No one chooses their parents. Nobody chooses the city they're born, and a lot of times the city they are raised in. Those are wombs that bore us. Our community life as Muslims, that's a womb. That's a womb that gave birth to our thinking, birth to our feelings, birth to our sensitivities. So Allah's telling us, reverence the wombs that bore you. And as Muslims, when we're done reading the Quran, we say, Sadaqallahu al-Azim. Say, Allah has spoken, and Allah has spoken the mighty truth. Allah has spoken, and Allah has spoken the mighty truth. So that's what we do as Muslims. We respect the word, going into reading it, recognizing God, and we respect the word coming out of it. You say, Sadaqallahu al-Azim. So we do want to get into our conversation. We have some guests coming on. The guests who I have, you can press 1 on your phone, and I bring you into the conversation. I have your numbers written down. I see a hand that's gone up already. I'm going to recognize this hand because they were up, but I'm not sure if they wanted the 50 years or younger. But call it 757. Thanks for calling Words Made People. Can you give us your first name and your comment, please?
Assalamu alaikum. This is Nabia Aziz from Baltimore, Maryland.
Yes, you
Calling
on.
to
How you
be
doing?
part of the conversation, inshallah.
Yes,
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing well.
yes, alhamdulillah. Now you're in Baltimore, right?
Yes, sir.
Good, good. Okay, well, we're going to get into our conversation. I see we got brother JB. We'll bring him on too. He's in Utah. He's now you and JB may know each other because y'all both have a St. Louis connection. Brother JB, assalamu alaikum.
Oh, Alaikum Assalam. Can everyone hear me well?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear. Loud
Yes.
and clear. Yes. Now,
Good to see you. I know Sister Nabia.
oh, okay. I get around. I know you got.
Alaikum, sister.
I don't think she heard you.
No,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
Now, sir, I don't think she heard you. You gave her the greetings. I don't think she heard you. Okay.
Oh yeah, I was saying Assalamu alaikum, Sister Nabia.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Yes. Good.
Yes,
Good.
indeed. This is a wonderful program.
I-
Alhamdulillah.
Well, the shows are being recorded. I'm on my Facebook page. It's going to be recorded there for X number of days. But also, I got this program, some of you are familiar with, called StreamYard.com. And as you're done with that product, it will also convert this into a YouTube. So Facebook right now, soon converted to YouTube, but also on the blog talk we have. That's going to the audio is going to be recorded there as well. So if you want to archive this later on, we can really get into the conversation. We have it there for later reference. But let me just say a few words to kind of give the backdrop of my thinking on this topic. Uh, there was a high school that I went to about 10, 11 years, at least 10 years straight. Every year the teacher invited me back to talk to her students about Islam. And so I had developed my little PowerPoint and my presentation, and it didn't change very much over those 10 years because each year was a new set of students. And after about 7, 8 years, I put my PowerPoint on. And I got one page on the PowerPoint. It's like important famous Muslims, like including Muhammad Ali, Ice Cube, Shaquille O'Neal, Jermaine Jackson, and all them, Dr. Oz. But Muhammad Ali was not wearing, he had on a suit and tie. And so the students began to struggle to identify these famous Muslims. And later on, the teacher told me in the hallway, she said, I have to tell them who Bill Clinton is. I was like, who? You do? She said, yes, I must tell them who Bill Clinton is. She said, because they don't know. And I thought about it. At this time, I think Donald Trump may have been in office. I said, that makes sense because after Bill Clinton, we had 8 years of George W. George Bush II. Then we had 8 years of Obama. That's 16 years, right? Well, the student in the classroom is only
Mm.
14, 15, 16 years old. They were not conscious. If they were born, they weren't conscious of Bill Clinton. I said, that makes a lot of sense because when I was born, Eisenhower was president, and I don't remember him. I remember Kennedy because he got shot, to be honest about it. And then go from there. The older I became, I had life connections, life experiences with the others, like Johnson, Nixon, and come on up. The more I lived, I had life memories, experiences with them. So I transferred that concept, which you can follow where I'm going. I said, well, Imam Muhammad, he's been gone now 16 years. There are Muslim youth
Mm.
who don't know him. They didn't go to conventions. They didn't go to banquets where he spoke. They didn't. He was when he was live on the radio or recording on the radio every Sunday. They don't have that. And then not only just with Imam Muhammad, but some of the pioneers who have passed on, they don't have those stories. Maybe in their own locale, in their own city where they live, do they know the history and the struggles of those pioneers who paid some serious prices? I mean, some serious prices. There's some from landing in the grave to divorces to losing jobs to losing family connections, but they still held strong. So we can have Islam today. So the youth may not have that. Another the saying is that each time that a senior citizen passes, it's the equivalent of a whole library burning down. All that knowledge that they had, all that wisdom that they had, is no longer accessible. So the focus today is to ask those who are, I guess, at 50 or whatever. It could be 70, I don't care, but mainly 50 and younger, right? To have a conversation with you all. I have some questions I want to ask, but you're free to include your own thoughts as well, your own questions as to how are you contributing, and I mean in a conscious way too, to the continuity of El Islam in America? Or do we need to have that conversation to begin to create that kind of thinking environment as to how are we going to advance or continue the continuity? That's why I read this verse from the Quran. Reverence to wounds that bore you. Reverence those wounds. It's really saying have a God consciousness about yourself. Have a God consciousness about yourself as to how that's going to happen. So I'm gonna key in with my guests now. I see another hand went up. I don't have it on my sheet. I'm gonna take his call real quick, but if they're not one of my guests, I'm gonna ask them to be patient and come back in the Q&A session. So call it from 706. Thanks for calling Words Make People. Can you give us your first name and your city, please?
This is Muhammad from the of Prophet Muhammad, but I heard what you said, so I'll call back and when you open up the comments.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Good to hear from you.
It's a good to hear from you too. You can press 1, please. So,
Yes,
Brother Muhammad.
sir.
You can press 1, please, on your phone. Okay, let's get into our conversation. And now I have some questions here, but uh, um, just take a minute too. I don't see my other guests on here yet. I hope they can come. Okay, I'm going to bring them into the conversation. Yes, okay. Brother Imam Mujahideen. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Imam. Yes, I always want to say you from Philly, but I think you moved to Jersey on me. I don't know. You can tell everyone.
Yes, I'm north of Jersey. I was in Philly for a while. Now I'm back in Jersey.
Okay. And our sister Shamara, am I saying her name right? She said a 918 number. and her husband, Zay 918. I want to bring them in as well. Sister Shamara, am I saying your name correctly? I'm sorry.
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, you said my name correct. Thank
Good.
you.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you and welcome to our program. Can you press 1 on your phone, please? And then you will go to the top of the list. And I'm looking for your husband's number too. I don't see his number yet. But I have you on, so I know you have limited time as well. So we're gonna go ahead and get into our conversation here. You might have any comments or reflections on what I've said so far before we get into our Q&A. I'm not into our question for our panel. Any comments on what I shared? Okay.
Were you asking me?
Yeah.
Tomorrow?
Okay. We have 4 people on. We have Sister Nabiha from Baltimore, Sister Shamar from North Carolina. I think you said North Carolina.
Yes, sir. North Carolina. Durham, North Carolina.
Yes, and Brother Kachebe he's in Utah, and Brother Mujahideen from New Jersey.
Yes,
So it's open for all 4 of you all. We just share the mic. And before I got into the questions I had on paper, I just wanted to not take for granted that no one did not have a comment on what I just shared a minute ago. If you do, that's fine. If not, we can go ahead and get into it. Go ahead, please. And also, I'm sorry, when you're talking, can you say who you are and then make your comment, please?
Assalamu alaikum. This is Brother Kachabi.
Okay.
I just wanted to, what you were saying earlier is profoundly important, respecting the wounds that bore us. And I love what you said earlier on how our mothers shape our minds. And I remember Imam Warfi Muhammad saying, years ago, that man is mind, and woman is, what did he say about the woman? He said,
she was the womb of mine, the womb.
Womb of mine. Yeah, exactly. Woman is womb of mine. And then back to respect the wombs that bore you. So this subject for me is extremely exciting, but at the same time, critically important. So I just wanted to say that I'm optimistic about what we're about to do in the discussion, and I'm optimistic about our future, especially under the leadership and having the thinking of Imam Warfi Muhammad. So that's my statement in response to what you said earlier, Imam.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it very much. Thank you very much. Anyone else have any reflections on my comments before we get to the questions? Okay, but let's get into our talk. One question, say, just how do you, and this is for everyone, how do you see, or have you thought about it, the future of Islam in America? Anyone want to take that question? How do you, what are your hopes for the future of Islam in America?
Okay. Again, assalamu alaikum. This is Brother Kachabi. If
Yes,
Imam Mujahideen, maybe I can open it up.
sure, go ahead.
For me, I'm extremely optimistic. I to the point where I see victory already.
Yes,
period. Because we've already had incredible examples, and we have the Quran. This is my belief, and I'm sure this is all of our beliefs. Number one, how are we going to lose anything when we have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We have the Quran. We have the example of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we have the method of Imam Warfi Muhammad. We've already won. So, but don't get it twisted. We are in a struggle. We're in an intense struggle. But it's I almost look at it like a boxing match.
Okay.
And it didn't start with my preparation obviously, Imam, your generation, my mom's generation, was already under attack from Shaitan. And then you guys, parents, patient, and it goes all the way back, has been under a constant attack. And the attacks are sophisticated and multi-pronged.
Okay.
And there's one particular attack I want to talk about as it relates to diminishing or even cutting off the continuity of our progression in the United States. And so I want to talk about how it's almost like that punch the Shaitan can throw, how we can roll off that punch, how we can avoid the punch, how we can dive under it, and then we can counter punch. So I want to go in particular into that. But
sure.
I just want to start off by saying I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic because we have the tools that we need. We have, I see other minds that have already been created from the different wombs.
That's right.
In particular, I'm thinking Sister Clark Muhammad schools, WDM high schools, and even before that, our parents who attended those conventions that you mentioned earlier, Imam.
Yes, sir.
And even those parents that had already surrendered to the Quran and surrendered to Allah and took that next step from just not only just being a Muslim, but going to the next step to being Mu'min. So and those Mu'min had children, which were our generation. You said 50-ish on down. We're the children of Mu'min.
Now, for the benefit for the benefit of our listening audience today and in the future, and those who may not be Muslim, what is the difference between a Muslim and a Mu'min, please?
Well, I love how Imam Muhammad described it. He said, the trees, the ants, animals, these are all Muslims. These are all Muslims. Even people can be Muslim, in their natural state. But when you take that mind that's produced and that mind has been encoded with taqwa or God consciousness, meaning whatever we do, this is the way God Almighty wants us to do it. And then we implement that, then all of a sudden we come online. We started to elevate from the Muslim state to the Mu'min state. And then my understanding, there are even higher states of consciousness. But it moved away from just creed only, C-R-E-E-D. It moves away from just the creed, and it moves into our actual bodies and our muscle memories. Then become movement, our thinking. Even with that's why Ramadan is one of my favorite times, period, because we be so intense in taqwa and even dreaming. We're a Muslim and Muslim, even in our dreams, when we're asleep. So even our instincts, everything is firing at a higher level.
Yes, sir.
So that's why I remain optimistic, because I see too many minds like the Mujahideen and others has already been raised in the factory, if you will.
The womb.
Of movement. Raised in that womb of the movement.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you, sir.
I can see Islam alive in them.
Yes, sir. Good. Wonderful.
So I remain optimistic. So that's my statement.
Yeah, I like that word, optimistic. Brother Imam Mujahideen, what are your thoughts? How do you see the future of Al-Islam in America?
Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum again to you all, the listening audience, and my co-panelists. One of the things that came to mind when I was listening to dear brother Kashabi and the work that he's doing in relation to preserving our cultural expression.
Yes, excellent work.
Three things come to mind, actually, initially. Yeah, three things come to mind initially, right? So it's like, when we think of the patent of Al-Islam in America, it's mainly been regulated to individuals or groups of people. So that's the first thing that comes to mind when I think of the future of Islam. Okay, how is the group of Muslims or the group individuals who call themselves Muslims and believers. And as Kashabi said, there are other levels. One of my favorite ayats, Surah 33, ayat 35. There's like 10 attributes that are equal to male and female, and that's one of the character development that I kind of incorporate in myself and my children and family. But in light of that, like that's one aspect of Muslims in the future, or Al-Islam in the future. How do each individual represent this religion in their personal life, their responsibilities with their family and their immediate community? But then, like the bigger picture, I think that I'm very optimistic and excited about is actually to create a new womb, which is actually an environment that respects these principles and these values. That's welcome to all people, not just those who have the identity of Muslim. And that's what I'm looking forward to being a part of and building and doing my share to contribute in that light.
Yes, sir. I mean, just so do you have any thoughts on how that can manifest itself, or is it still in? Or are you still processing it?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, can you the question again?
No, you mentioned about how each individual can come to represent Al-Islam and the verses that were equal to the male and female. But in the future, is that already being formulated, or is it still a concept in your mind that you're still working on?
Oh, as far as like as me as a program or process?
Yeah, I mean,
like,
for what you just expressed, to make it come alive and that make it manifest itself in society. Is that already in process, or are you still working on, or are you still thinking about it?
It's in process, but it has to become more formal. And the whole thing about that is that, me recently being married and having a wife, to have that balance of responsibility.
Right.
She always is imposed. She's here too. If she don't mind coming on, she might give you all the greetings, Sister Marsha. But
yes.
These are ideas right now. These ideas are expressing ideals,
That's good.
which is good. It's benefit for us to share with our children, but you also have to make it something tangible. And so that is something that we look to do.
Yes, sir.
It's something that I initiated, several years ago, in one of my initiatives in Philadelphia. It was called the New Freedom District, and we did have principles from the Quran to reflect community development principles. But we do have to bring it back, build it up again, and present it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sister Shamora, what are your thoughts?
I'm definitely very optimistic about the future of Islam, period, in this country, especially when I, alhamdulillah, like see my own children and where they are in their deen and how they're starting to really identify it for themselves and embrace, Islam for themselves and, and grow in their own deeds and everything. It's beautiful to watch and to see them, to now have them joining me and leading Salat and, reciting Quran, just doing all those things. It's just like my wildest dreams. It's very beautiful. But I do think that we are in the era of challenges. It's very different. Like the environment Islamically that my children are coming up in is very different than the environment I came up in Islamically. I grew up like in the masjid, very close to the masjid, and now it's more like, and I think probably COVID has something to do with this too, but it's more like we're connected to certain Muslim families and we get together as families. It's not centered around the masjid or in the masjid as much anymore.
Okay.
And it's not, and not only that, but there's not a lot of programming there's not really any programming like for youth, and there's not a lot of children in the, like when we go, my children are often the only children, and that might just be specific to where I'm at in Durham, North Carolina. But we haven't always lived here. We've lived many other places too. So it's almost like this, and movement. I think there's a lot happening now. Things are still happening, but it's just, and my children still have like Muslim friends and stuff, but it's like not centered around the masjid. It seems like it's more outside of the masjid.
You're making it makes a lot of sense, because what you're saying, and maybe Sister Nabiha can speak to it from her training she had with the of the Muslims. There's a concern conversation of what's called an upside down pyramid, and in the pyramid, each line there's a represent the age bracket. But the upside down, a regular pyramid with the base, the flat on the bottom, you have mostly youth. And as you go higher to the peak, you have the older generation. So at the peak, you have less older people, but at the base, you have a lot of young people. Well, for many masters, similar to what you kind of explained, it's an upside down pyramid. You have very few youth at the bottom, but on the top, you got a lot of gray haired people. And that's not good for in the community life. So that's a concern we have about the continuity of our communities, the continuity of our community life. Some communities are aging out because the young people are not there, as it was in your childhood days. You probably had a lot more youth around, which means you got a future because if you have young people, then you have a future, or more young people, I should say. But thank you for that. You made a very good point. You're optimistic, but also you're realistic as well, and trying to be focused on those things. Sister Nabiha, you have any comments you want to share on what are your thoughts about the future of Al Islam in America?
Assalamu alaikum. I feel optimistic about the future of Al Islam in America.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the religion is absolutely going to thrive, that the religion is going to grow, and that, Allah has its face covered. However, I have concerns about the future of the knowledge body and the cultural experience of Imam Murthy Muhammad community in America.
Okay.
And the reason actually is connected to what my sister just spoke about. And what you just shared about the inverted pyramid. When I go to the masjid, and I like to travel and I like to visit a lot of different masjids throughout our community. And when I go to our masjid, I don't see young people on the carpet. When I go to our masjid, I don't see a lot of new shahadatayn being given. When I go to our masjid, I don't see a lot of functioning, educational institutions happening. And so that gives me a lot of concern for what the future of the expression of Imam Murthy Muhammad community looks like for the future. And I don't know exactly what the solution is or how we fix it. I mean, I definitely think that it is a conversation about marriage and family life and how we promote marriage and family life, how we promote our communities coming together to create environments that are conducive for families and environments that are conducive for children. So that's what I see right now. I'll leave that for my opening comment.
Thank you. Wonderful. Yes, sir.
May I chime in?
Please.
Yes, sir. Sister Tia took the words literally right out of my mind. And in fact, I think remember I mentioned earlier, one of the attacks, because there are many attacks, but one of the attacks that the shaitan is using against our community is in marriage. And that's really what I want to talk about. And I've thought about it literally kind of all night. Let me just rewind a little bit. Let me recollect my thoughts. Number one, I believe we all know that half of the deen itself is marriage.
Right.
Half of the deen itself is marriage. And the attack in particular, because I think about it a lot, is we're being attacked in our interpersonal relationships, in particular in our roles. So when I think about the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and I'm just now thinking of concepts and thinking of groups of people, kill off the male and let the female live.
Right.
Kill off the male and let the female live. And even we know both the male and female, we are literally both masculine and feminine in our energy. We all are. We come from mommy, we come from daddy.
Right.
And obviously not just biological, but even in our spirit, the feminine energy, masculine energy. Okay? We know in order to physically manifest things, you have to really depend a lot in the masculine energy for leadership. That's why I love that sister said earlier. It's beautiful to see that leadership leading in the Salah. But the Salah is represents the programming of part of our soul. We were always supposed to be in Salah. I love how the Quran say when you watch the birds fold their wings, they're in their form of Salah. That part of the taqwa allows us to move forward in our leadership, but at the same time, it's just an ayah. When we go to the masjids and we're in Salah and we see each other in Salah, please understand that's not the reality. That's a sign pointing to the reality. So when we leave the masjids and go back into our interpersonal relationships, we're supposed to be reflecting that, the real reality of family.
Yes, sir.
That's what's supposed to happen when we come together in the Salah, we put our shoulders together and we move in as one solid structure. That is an ayah of what we're supposed to be doing in social life.
Well, let me ask
in our culture, in our business, we're supposed to be moving as one.
Yeah. What I'm hearing.
Okay, so I'm sorry. Go ahead, email.
No, I mean what I'm hearing. If I'm hearing correctly, the prayer life, not just the ritual of bowing and standing and prostration. We got that too. That's very important. But the messages that come from that salat, prayer has to be, and for the continuity of Islam in America to be successful, prayer has to be solid. Prayer got to be intact. Prayer got to be in place. Prayer got to be consistent in the community life. Of course, the individual, but in the ummah.
Right. And Imam, not just, but how we are praying. Because Allah gave us a specific mode, just like the birds fold their wings.
Okay.
In our particular mode, the male is the leader, point blank.
Yes,
He's
sir.
the imam.
Yes, sir.
Now, what happens to the salat inside of the masjid? Kill the male, let the female live. Now, you see where I'm heading?
Yes, sir.
What
yes, sir.
to the salat?
Right. Yes, sir.
If there's no, you see what I mean? So now, what happens naturally, like I was saying earlier, we're masculine and feminine. So you kill off the male. I'm leaving away the masjid now. I'm talking in the society now.
Yes.
You take our role away, then women have to become more masculine in order to push forward the continuity of our community.
That's right.
And that's the trick.
Yes. Because
now it's when we're trying to get married. So now you're trying to have these two minds come together to continue continuity. We have some men that are too feminine.
Yes.
And we have some women that are too masculine. And the shaitan just sits back and laughs.
Okay.
So now how are we gonna have a successful community when we can't even have a successful marriage?
Okay, so I'm making notes, but I want to get the other people. I want to get the other but then get the other people in too. You make a good point, but but I want you to wrap it up with a good solid point. I just want to say what I'm hearing before we even get into the questions. Good, prayer life and marriage life are key and essential for the continuity of Islam in America. If we don't have those bases,
bingo,
we're not gonna make it. Alhamdulillah. Okay. Question: have your parents or the pioneers, or have you listened to them share with you their sacrifices? I know of some, just here in Indianapolis, I could tell you some sacrifices make you want to cry. You know, for us, even one sister years ago, this did the Nation of Islam Day. She lost her children because she wouldn't denounce the Nation of Islam. You know, and this was in a court from a judge. I know people who lost jobs. I know some who lost lives. And sometimes you don't have this say very often. If you don't know where you came from, if you don't know what sacrifices your mother, your father, or the pioneers made before you, then how do you know where you're going? How do you know you're going in the right direction? So the question is, what are your thoughts on the sacrifices of the American Muslims who came before you? Let's begin with Sister, if you don't mind, Sister. And God, let me apologize too. Sister, get her name right. Sister Shamara, she just came on the last minute, so she didn't have a lot of time to prepare. Brother Kichebi is for the last minute as well. So I do want to apologize for that. But some things changed on my end. And thank you all for it at the last minute coming in to help out. But Sister Shamara, you have any thoughts on that? The sacrifices made? Or do you know?
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
First of all, you're welcome. It's a very important discussion, so I appreciate you for even thinking to put this together and to opening the floor for this dialogue. It's so essential for us to be able to build and do better for the future.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as our parents go, wow, just, you know, I think I want to start with my husband. His mother, she was the first in their family to become Muslim. She came through in the Nation of Islam first, and then under Imam Warfi Muhammad, they're from New York.
Okay.
So it's a very rich tradition, a lot of sacrifices that we seen her make. She was a principal of Sister Clara Muhammad School. I love her, and she's just such a pillar in the community and for our family. And then also in my family as well, my parents who, you know, were persecuted and made many came through mainly, I would say, depending on my father's side, came through as immigrants, and then on my mom's side came through, you know, Warfi Muhammad.
Mm-hmm.
So those sacrifices, we definitely stand on their shoulders. Mm-hmm. I love that my children can sit at the feet of their grandparents and, you know, learn about Islam and learn about those sacrifices. I know the masjid we go to here in Durham, North Carolina, is the oldest masjid in North Carolina, period.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you know, was founded in 1958. So, and it was very much a pillar as far as like the civil rights movement, for not just for Muslim Black Americans, but for all Black Americans, really all Americans, as far as our fighting for our rights and our freedom. We were, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you know, African American Muslims were the first to set up schools, corner stores, businesses to feed the people. We were the kitchen, everything. You know, yeah, so our family's big sacrifices towards the community, as far as like giving up our wealth and to the community for the benefit of the community, living, you know, because, you know, you had to give up, you know. So we saw those sacrifices being made, and we feel those sacrifices, but it was so that we could have this future, and so the community could, you know, come up out of, you know, all the oppression that we were going through.
Yes.
So definitely important. Definitely.
Yes, and I love the part when you said that your children are able to sit at the feet of their grandparents and get firsthand knowledge of those sacrifices. Because just hearing, when you hear about your parents and grandparents, that instills something in you of a indebtedness when you realize what they've done, just so you can be a Muslim, really would, compared to them, ease. So it's very important. Sister Nabiha, what are your thoughts on the sacrifices? Or what? Let me say this first, because I'm gonna make it here in Indianapolis. I'm gonna make it. I'm saying make it, but I'm going to highly encourage it. That the Muslims here, in particular, you can be the imam. You got to know the history, going back to the nation days, even. And who was the imam? Who was the minister? Who was the sacrifices? What was the encounters with even with the police? We had some encounters with the police. Not to bring up the negativity, but if you don't know the history and the development and the struggles and who went without so that the masjid could go with. There's a lot of Muslims who went without, and their families went without, so they can say Muhammad speaks or whatever. So I guess I want to make that. I want to ask that question too. What do you know about your own city's history? But Sister Nabiha, what are your thoughts about the sacrifices of the pioneers?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest sacrifices was, to my earlier point, back in the realm of marriage and family life, right? So in the Nation of Islam and on in the progression of our community in the first, there were marriages and there were children. So I think that our women in particular, they sacrificed in that they made sure that they prioritized marriage and they prioritized being mothers, which is huge sacrifice. And I don't think that even I have looked at it in that way in the past, but they made sure that they were creating marriages, that they were creating communities, they were having children, and they were doing the best that they could to teach their children and bring their children up in Islam so that they could literally build the nation that they were trying to create.
That's right.
By populating their communities and their masjids. So that is one sacrifice that I think was really momentous. And in some cases, they didn't have a whole lot of options, or sometimes that they were told this is who you're going to marry, and they just fell in line and they married those people because that's what the leadership of the community told them at that time. So I think that is something that I don't often hear spoken about. But I also think that in the realm of marriage and it's a family life, that they literally sacrificed their families. A lot of our community, which is extremely unique to our expression of Islam, when our parents, our grandparents, when they accepted Islam, for a lot of them, that meant that they gave up their families. Their families did not accept them.
That's true.
A lot of people have stories of being, a preacher's kid, right? So they grew up in the Christian church, and when they decided to accept Islam, their families said, "You're not my child anymore." And so a lot of them lost their connection to their own families to accept Islam and to build this nation. So that is another component.
Let me get there real quickly. Let me get there real quickly. I talked to a young sister in the last year, and I began to ask her about her cousins, and she thought for a second. She said, "When my father joined the Nation of Islam," she said, "I really don't know my cousins. Like when my father joined the Nation of Islam, his brothers and sisters cut him off." And then now they're grown, they begin to know each other, but they didn't have those childhood games, growing up together. They just didn't have it because of the sacrifice, and the father wouldn't budge. He said, "No, this is me now." So
absolutely.
yes. I'm sorry, but go ahead.
That's my experience as well. The last thing that I want to say is that they sacrificed their livelihood. So joining the Nation of Islam meant that now the FBI was showing up to your home, and the FBI was showing up to your job. So people got fired from their job, and they had to make a decision on, if I join the nation, I know that these people may show up to my job, I may get fired. So what am I going to do as an alternative? And so this is where we got to the to do for self, where our men and our women, but our men in mass were becoming entrepreneurs, and they were working for the community, and they were selling papers, and they were giving all that they had to the community so that they could provide for themselves, they could provide for their families, and that they could support the community. This is a big sacrifice that we don't see a lot of today, and I know that there is a lot of trust issues that are connected to it, but we no longer move as a unit. Everybody wants to be very autonomous and independent, and so we're not moving as a unit, and we are not giving to the collective good in the ways that we saw in our in the wounds of the past, in the Nation of Islam and on into the first. You know, we prioritize giving of our bodies and giving of our financial means, our financial resources for the collective good of the entire community or the entire nation, not just for our house, not just for our masjid, but for the entire success of the nation. So those are the three things that I'll highlight.
Thank you. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Wow. Brother Imam Mujahideen, and along with that, if you respond, I guess an open question. How do we capture that history? And I know there are books being written. Could there be plays made? How do we capture that? Can we, because people, they create dances and rituals a lot of times now, they taught us to create a dance just to shake our body. But in most societies, the dance is really capturing the history of the development. But that's in Brother Kajabi's Department of Culture. But Imam Mujahideen, what are your thoughts about that, about the sacrifices? Now, are you second generation or third generation, Brother Imam?
On my father's side, I'm third generation. On my mother's side, oh no, yeah, third generation. On both sides actually.
Okay, good.
But my father's uncle brought him in, and his son. And then on my mother's side, her father was a part of the nation. Yeah, so
okay.
I guess I'm third generation.
Yes, sir. So I'm sure you have heard a lot of stories. So no, no, that your voice is. Yeah,
I'm an archiver.
Yeah, okay, but your voice is kind of faint a little bit. Are you away from your phone?
I'm up on my headphones. I have them speaking. But
Okay.
I was saying that because I heard the story growing up, that was another development. We didn't environment. He was always he tells us the story about when his cousins who were Jehovah's Witness and Christian, we would come to family gatherings. We was always together, and they would say, you can't keep him under your care all the time for the rest of your life. But as long as he could, he did. And in doing that, we got to hear firsthand stories, not just from my father, his experience, but also from Imam Muhammad, also from the different community members and the different places when we go to conventions and stuff like that. So that exposure to firsthand accounts from different individuals give us a different perspective of our history. And then now we also preserving the history. And so that's one way that we preserve is by get those collections. A lot of people, families, when they pass, by them being the only Muslim in their family or being separated from other Muslims that they may know, they lost collections because people didn't know what to do with it. And so that's one thing we're doing now. One of our motivations in our organization is to get the collections and then organize the collection, digitize the collection, And then, like you said, you can produce other products, books, plays, and so forth and so on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So one point I wanted to make real quick that the BM brought to my attention when she talked about the importance of those who had to make that sacrifice and breaking and losing families and then developing families, and this sense of a community, national, international, a movement, like this sense of movement. I think what we have to do is we have to, with intelligence, of course, and with consent, we have to like create this shared commitment agreement. And one of the studies that we're doing in the ILTDP class, we went over how, in the life example of the prophet, when he made that migration, when he had to leave his homeland, his womb that bore him, and then go to another environment, they had to create contracts. They created treaties. They created, they have the Constitution of Medina. So they had to create these type of agreements that we all are consciously and willingly working and building together.
Yes, sir.
Not just with our faith and spirit, but with our intention.
Right. Okay. Now I am in a situation. I think the power went out for the whole neighborhood. I'm going to continue as long as I can, but I may have to. What time we got? We just 2:07. We just got all into it. Wow. I did have some more questions, but I got to go check on my sump pump. Just be honest about it. Question. I'm gonna ask the question. I'm gonna let you all speak. I'm gonna leave for about 5-10 minutes. But the question is, I mentioned before about how our younger generation don't know Imam Muhammad, the person. They don't know Wallace, the son of Elijah Muhammad, the son of Claire Muhammad. They hear it from us about him. Then there's an effort going on. I know Sister Nabiha just finished the course with the Imam Bashir Ali and them. And they may have covered this. I'm going to begin with her. But what are your thoughts on Imam Muhammad as a body of knowledge? Not the flesh and blood man who passed away, but as a body of knowledge. Years ago, we had a conversation. We had a group of us, about 7 or 8 of us, Muslims, and we were met with the Presbyterians. And we traveled to about 7 or 8 different cities, from Oakland to Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Indianapolis, Atlanta, St. Louis. And each time it would be the Presbyterians, about 5 or 6 of them, and about 7 or 8 of us Muslims. And in one of the meetings, the Presbyterians asked us a question. They said, Imam Muhammad, this is them speaking, this was the Christians speaking to us, okay? Keep that in mind. And they said, Imam Muhammad said that the prophets are a type. Okay, so they've been studying the Imam, right? But then they asked us a question. They said, do you all see Imam Muhammad as a type? And it caught me off guard. I can't remember my reply. But now we got Christians thinking this way, right? The Presbyterians, they came to our convention every year. So based upon that, what are your thoughts on Imam Muhammad as a body of knowledge? As a body of knowledge. So what are your thoughts? I'm going to leave for a few minutes. I have to go check on my sump pump. But if anyone can just answer the question, and I'll be right back. Let's go with Sister Shamara, because she may have to leave in a few minutes.
Okay, what is the question? I didn't get the question exactly.
Yes, the question is, what are your thoughts on Imam Muhammad as a body of knowledge, not a flesh and blood man? The flesh and blood man is gone. He is
right.
So what are your thoughts on Imam Muhammad as a body of knowledge?
Body of knowledge. Well, I think somebody brought up, we've been talking about archiving and preserving the history and preserving, canonizing, like, his lectures and everything. I think that what I see being the next phase of that, as far as the body of knowledge, is putting it into curriculum, putting it into seeing it in different media in different ways and storytelling and in like children's books and breaking that information down and passing it. That's more of like how we're going to see that passed on to other generations and starting with the children, but taking his knowledge and information and lectures and things like that and putting it into like storybook form or something like that, or into film, cartoon, starting there. I think that's the next. I think it's important just to canonize that and to preserve it, and that's how we ensure the preservation and going on with that.
So I agree. So I absolutely think that Imam Morsi Muhammad is a body of knowledge. I would even say that Imam Morsi Muhammad's knowledge body, that it is a school of thought, it's a method, and the way that he understood Al-Islam, the way that he was able to break it down practically, in a way that is easy to grasp for all people, but especially for the audience of Americans and American life, I think is just absolutely amazing. And I am really appreciative of efforts to preserve that knowledge body. So efforts such as the IWDM study library and the work of Imam Mubashir Usta, as well as the Islamic Leadership Training and Development Program, which has recently completed its first cohort of learning, which is a 2-year learning institute that is focused on the knowledge body of Imam Morsi Muhammad and is intended to develop emerging leaders. So it focuses on Islamic community leadership, knowledge body of Imam Morsi Muhammad, and Islamic sciences. So programs like that will allow us to continue to carry on the legacy of Imam Morsi Muhammad. But I said a knowledge body or method or school of thought, those things are able to continue because of their powers, right? Just like if you are, I'm an organizer, so you push forward your efforts and your initiatives by mobilizing people who support that. So I think that it is incumbent upon all of us to continue to further that knowledge body, and that is where I feel like we have to be more united. We have to have some consistency in how we are, how we're spreading Imam Morsi Muhammad's knowledge body, how we are making his message more universal, because it's not about the man, it's about the message. So how are we spreading the information in a way that is universal and that can be grasped by anybody, regardless of who they see as their independent leader, even down to our khutbahs. If we are a community, then there should be some consistency around how we are teaching our khutbahs. What are the topics that we're focusing on so that we can all grow and develop together as an entire community? I think that we have a wealth of knowledge to build from, but we have some work to do on regarding how we're going to get that message out and how we're going to make sure that the message reaches our next generation.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent.
Very well said.
Imam?
Well, before you do that, I'm going to bring on, I think his name is Zaid. He's the husband of Sister Shamara. He raised his hand. I'm going to bring him into the conversation. Welcome, brother. Is it Zaid, your name?
Ziad.
Ziad.
Ziad Day.
Yes, sir. Sorry about that. You have a observation you want to share with us?
No problem. Yeah. I grew up in the Sister Clara Muhammad School. my mother became a teacher there in about 1970, 75 or so.
Okay.
And we joined we became Muslim. My mother, when I was in my mother's arms, and we became Muslim consciously at the same time.
Alhamdulillah.
There's to me, Imam Marti Muhammad's legacy, started I guess right around that time or before then, when his father sent him to, overseas to study, and he came back to the community that was there with a different message.
Well,
and I remember being treated.
Excuse me. No, he did not send Imam Muhammad. He sent his younger brother, Akbar Muhammad. Imam Muhammad never went overseas to study. That was his brother, Akbar Muhammad, who was about 6 years younger than Imam Muhammad.
Okay, well, I appreciate that correction.
Yes, sir. No problem. Mm-hmm. Now, Imam,
I felt like he was the
go ahead.
He was the spearhead on, when the split happened. He was instrumental in changing the direction that the Muslims were going.
Yes, sir, he was.
I remember there being a discrepancy. You may say that I'm saying the wrong thing here, but I remember him wanting something that was different from what the nation was doing.
That's true.
And I remember say it again?
Yeah, you're right. Yes, sir.
And I remember that there was a rift, and the nation went one way, and the American Muslims went the other. And my mother and I, we stayed with the American Muslim mission, and that was what became the school. The nation, when it was the nation and it was all together, it felt like there was a lot more financial support. And as that split happened over the next, 20 years, I kind of witnessed the funds dry up in the school.
Right.
And as a child, I remember those, like the money did stop coming in, and the more and more people stopped coming to the masjid, and where it was an absolute good thing for the communities. That in New York, I was on 116th Street in Lenox, and it changed the neighborhoods around. The imams talked to the actual drug dealers and the pimps and cleaned up the neighborhood.
Yes,
and
sir.
It left an impression of seeing how things went in the beginning, and then where it went to after the imam passed away.
Yes, sir. Well, let me make some comments on.
So
I need to make some observations of that are important to keep in mind. That's why I'm glad we covered before the importance of knowing the history and the importance of knowing the sacrifices and the chronological order in which these things happen. It's very important that we know this. Okay, so somebody there in their car, and you can hear their background noise. So in 1975, with the passing of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the whole community supported Imam Wallace D. Muhammad, W.D. Muhammad. And that continued for about a couple of years. And then Minister Farrakhan was the main one we know about, but there were others. They were dissatisfied with the changes being made, going from a nationalistic point of view of Islam, it was Black oriented, to come into the universality of the Quran and the universality of Islam. And so some decided to go back and recreate the Nation of Islam. Also, with Imam Muhammad's leadership came the freedom that every human being should have, and not being made to sell papers and not being made to do certain things. And so there were freedoms given. We're going to preserve the community life and let it grow, then there were freedoms given. And there has been a tremendous amount of growth, but it's not cataloged. You know, we have more millionaires now in our community, Imam Muhammad, male and female, than before. Whereas before, the brother had to go sell Muhammad Speaks. He wouldn't have time to go out and become a millionaire, et cetera, et cetera. So it's important to keep those things in mind. Some things did go, what you would say, down, but then a lot of things flourished out, and in a lot of ways. So the question of today is to what do we grasp from that past for the continuity for the future? What lessons do we learn from that? So some things that you pointed out, they are important to point out. So we're not going to shun away from those areas of deficiency. And there's no, how else can we grow out of those deficiencies unless we first identify and recognize those deficiencies? And that's the question before those of you who I'm saying 50 and younger. You know, I'm looking at 70 in a few years, so it's kind of like, so what are you all going to do? What focuses? What's important? You know, what lessons can you learn from my generation and the generation before me to not repeat some of those same mistakes? So I appreciate what you were sharing. I guess we put that into some type of context so we can just see what happened. And a lot of it is freedom.
What I learned from it?
Yes, sir.
What I learned from it was to live it, to actually be what we perfect.
Yes,
and
sir.
That's what I've been working on with my family.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest things that I've taken from my life is to support the teachers that I feel weren't as supported
Yes,
as
sir.
they were in the time when Muhammad was doing everything here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And that's been my focus.
Well, thank you very much. I'm going to make another comment. For those who are watching on Facebook, my tablet's down to 3%, so I'm going to keep you on as long as I can. My phone is good, so I'm good on my phone. But I may lose you on Facebook. You can't see me anyway, but it's dark. You can hear me. So, okay. Thank you very much, brothers. Thank you very much. Because this is how we grow. We have to hear those things that may not be as pleasant, but that's where we can roll up our sleeves and get busy. I'm going to bring in our brother here from, he came on earlier. Got a couple of calls here I want to bring in. But I'm going to say this here. I want to keep this conversation on the focus of the youth and what they're going to do. If I hear negativity, whatever else, may disconnect your call. Because you're trying to be positive. You're trying to build upon, this is our community. This is our life. So, did everyone make the reflections? I left for about 5 minutes. Did everyone make reflections on the question? I think Brother Kachabi,
no, sir. And our brother was trying to go next and make a reflection, but no, everybody didn't get it. Our brothers didn't get to chime in.
Okay, go ahead, please, brothers.
Is that okay for me, ma'am? This is Brother Kachedi.
Yes, sir. I think it's fine with me. Yes, sir.
I'll try to make it very quick. Number one, Sister Nabi is on point. I mean, I'm amen to everything. Taking everything out of my mind. So I'll try to make it quick. Number one, the sacrifice that our parents made, your generation, Imam, and older, was beautiful and necessary. It was beautiful and necessary. Okay, 2, the body of knowledge of Imam Muhammad is two-pronged. I will look at it just like the body, like Sir Isaac Newton's body of knowledge. Of course, it is canon now, but it is not, I would say it's not intended for us just to go back to 1973, 1975, 1982, and just feed on that and stop. That's the canon part of it. The second part of it is to allow us to feed on it so we can project forward, just like Einstein was produced from Sir Isaac Newton, like Nielsen Bohr and others were produced from Einstein. So that brings us to the type. Imam Muhammad's type is deduction, reasoning, logic. That's the type. I didn't realize that until I was in school studying logic. And then I went back to Imam Muhammad. I was like, oh my God, that's the method he's using. And the beauty is it allows us to project forward away from him, not to go to sleep inside of the canon. The Imam will always say, follow logic to work. It's logical conclusions.
Right.
And then what happens when we do that, we're not locked into a dead doctrine. It allows life to continue to vibrate. When we make wudu, we are not making wudu in a pond. We're making wudu with flowing water. Okay, that's it. I'm gonna keep it like that. Most of that stuff.
Alhamdulillah, thank you.
My feels on it.
That's right. That's right.
Allah Akbar, for real.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Brother Imam Mujahideen, what are your thoughts?
Yes, that the importance of how we see the knowledge body. That's what we're referring to.
Yes, I mean, cause yes, that's it. Go ahead, go on, please comment.
Yeah. I think that those who inherit the responsibility of preserving the authenticity of the knowledge body, like in its original form, is important because I know there's two things that come to mind. One is like the knowledge body itself. So like all of the lectures Imam Muhammad gave, like and extracting from that. But sometimes when I hear it, it seems like we not us here, but it could almost say that we want to, maybe by default, because this happened to previous thought leaders in our community too. Like if you think about Martin Luther King and other leaders, they take, I guess, whatever they get the benefit from that knowledge body, and that's good too. But I think as a direct community member, I think we have another responsibility to also preserve the man's his story as well. Because that's we kind of lose out on that benefit, because to really get the benefit of the knowledge as it was intended, I think you have to also know more of the person and the challenges that they had to even communicate that knowledge. We even see that when we learn about the life example of the prophet. Anyone could take anything that the prophet said and get benefit from it because it's true. It's connected to our heart. But when you actually know the prophet and know the experience, then you become like a believer. So it's both. I think it's both. I think it's the benefit to make the knowledge accessible to the people so they get the benefit of the knowledge. But I think it's also important for us to know the Imam's story, his family story, and preserve that as well.